Hey guys, it's Tom here. Welcome to the AoStation, a weekly news show that I do about the AOS genre. You might also know it as the MOBA genre or the ARTS genre. Games like Heroes of Newerth, Defense of the Ancients, and League of Legends, as well as some other less known games like Bloodline Champions and Realm of the Titans. So we go over news and we talk about stuff. Usually I have a host, but tonight is kind of a special episode because we don't have a host and I have a lot of work to do, so we're going to get over this as quick as possible. Um, there's surprisingly little news when it comes to the big three, that being League of Legends, Heroes of Newerth, and Dota 2, but there's a little bit of a surprise that I'll have coming up at the end of the episode. So you're going to have to wait. Or you can click one of the sidebars that I have right here to go to a part of the video if you want to skip over the stuff that you don't really care about. So as you can see to my, there we go, over there are the patch notes for today, and we're going to start off with League of Legends because there really isn't that much to talk about. In fact, there's nothing to talk about news-wise except for the new free-to-play Champions rotation, which you already know months ahead because they go with an algorithm. Um, it's not really a surprise to anybody, but I did want to point out some interesting additions to the roster. Obviously, there's Katarina, so you're going to have a lot of Katarina carries going on. Soraka, pretty boring. If you don't like fighting Warwick, you should just stop playing this week. Really, the only one I wanted to point out was Graves, because the only champion that came out within the past, 5 months that I've been interested in is Graves. And I heard that he got nerfed pretty severely, but I still want to try him out, play him before I buy him. So I will actually play at least one match this week, even though I don't play League of Legends that often. And I've never seen Ari because I didn't play when she came out, so I'd be interested to see what she's all about. But on that note, we're going to go over to Heroes of Newerth. There's a nice little picture painted by Mooney Mage at DeviantArt. And here's the Heroes of Newerth free-to-play list. Once again, I'm confused as to why there are such an imbalance. Last week it was mostly carries. This week it's mostly int heroes, who can be carries also, but most of the time int heroes are support characters. So you got your 3 carries right here for your agility. You have no strength carries, surprisingly enough. You have 1 intelligence carry, 2, I guess. Soul Reaper can be played as an intelligence carry. I don't know that much about Artesia or Gravekeeper, but I'm pretty sure they're not carries. If Noah was here, he'd tell you, but he's not on tonight. So it seems kind of oddly int heavy, but that being said, a lot of heroes can be played a lot of different ways, so it'll end up balancing out. And there's a new all-avatar for Monkey King called the Peking Duck, which I don't really understand it. It's literally a Chinese duck. I don't know whether it's a reference to something. I have no idea. But they did some stuff. They updated some models. That's not really worth talking about. It seems that they nerfed Helm of the Black Legion a little bit, and they nerfed Shield of the Five and Plated Greaves, even though I don't really think anybody took advantage of the fact that they stacked. I don't think anybody really cared. Shield of the Five and Plated Greaves aren't really that big of a deal, unless you play heroes that are, make it mandatory, like someone like Belphegor. So let's get straight down into the actual hero changes, because surprisingly enough, there are a lot of them this week, even though Heroes of Newerth usually keeps things, they usually save hero changes for like a balance patch, but this week they decided to add some. Ashes to Ashes on Amon-Ra no longer gains charges except from hero damage. That's actually a very big change to Amon-Ra, because Ashes to Ashes, what it does is every time he takes damage, I believe it's within a certain threshold, but it might just be every time he takes an instance of damage, he gains attack speed and he gains a stacking damage aura around him that deals more damage the more charges you have. So what this means is that you won't be able to jungle as effectively and farm as effectively with Amon-Ra, because the strat used to be you would run into the jungle, and since you're taking damage from the creeps, you would have increased attack speed and AoE damage, so you would be able to AoE farm pretty effectively. But since it now only gains charges from hero damage, yeah, I am reading that correctly. Since it now only takes charges from hero damage, that means you're not going to be able to do that much anymore. I don't know if it's still possible, but it's definitely not going to be as good on Amon-Ra, which I think is a good thing, because Amon-Ra was kind of a cheesy hero. There were a lot of heroes in Heroes of Newerth that were strength carries in that they wouldn't necessarily do a ton of damage, but they would be so incredibly tanky and have damage over time abilities that it would be a battle of attrition that they would always win. Um, they changed Andromeda, which I'm actually afraid, because Andromeda and her Dota counterpart were pretty much the same forever. So let's see how they changed her. Comet mana cost, Comet mana cost lowered. Okay, so they're buffing that. Void Rip cooldown decrease, another buff, and increasing starting strength and increasing starting intelligence. Just buffs all around for Andromeda. That's great, because I know there isn't that much difference between the Heroes of Newerth and Dota heroes like this, like Andromeda. But whenever I play Dota, I feel like I play a lot better using Vengeful Spirit than I do playing Andromeda. I don't really know why. It might just be a psychological thing, but this might be a way to help put her on Vengeful Spirit's level. Because Vengeful Spirit, excuse me, is a very good hero in Dota. And she's a really good hero in Han too, but now she's going to be even better. Going on to Artesia, they are nerfing and fixing one of her abilities, so they're not really that big of a nerf. Just 1 point for each stat, except for intelligence. So maybe she just was too tanky in the very beginning, or whatever. Those are starting stats, so it basically will only affect her early game. I mean, I take that back. It'll affect her all game, but it'll affect her most in the early game. They fixed a thing with Defiler, fixed a thing with Flux, fixed a thing with Geomancer. Gravekeeper, unstable zombie explosive damage from zombie apocalypse increased. Okay, so they buffed his ultimate. Kinesis can no longer lift gadgets, which is a good thing, because what gadgets are in Heroes of Newerth are like almost like doodads in Warcraft. If you're not familiar, they're when you summon like an art asset, or I don't know if it's art assets or not. I think a gadget is like Engineer's ultimate when he drops down a ward. I think it's like wards, like secondary units. But I might be way off. I don't know. And he can no longer throw stuff at Kongor, which I guess that would be kind of cheap if you could just pelt Kongor with trees all around him. They changed Nomad. They nerfed him. They nerfed his Mirage Strike, which is good, and they buffed his True Strike, which is great. I like this a lot, because Nomad's Mirage Strike made his True Strike almost trivial, because what his Mirage Strike would do is it would send a Mirage to your target, which would deal damage. I think it's based off your attack damage. But your True Strike would send you at them, and you would have increased damage, I believe, and increased attack speed or something like that. But since the Mirage dealt so much damage, and it made you invisible when you cast it, there was really no point in sending yourself into danger when you could literally just send that nuke out, which would, at early levels, cut people down to almost half. It does an insane amount of damage, since it's based off your attack damage, I do believe, unless I'm way out there. And they increased the slow on his Sandstorm, which, okay. People usually wouldn't use it for the slow anyway, so that's an interesting buff, but not really anything I don't think that'll affect the game too much, which is a good thing, and we'll get back to that later when we go over our last point. Predator, they fixed something. I'm not going to go over bug fixes because those just aren't important. Shadowblade, Gargantuan Blast, damage increased, and Faint Siphon, damage increased. That's good. I heard from Noah that Shadowblade was a really fun hero, but not a very effective one, so giving him buffs seems like the right way to go. And Soul Stealer, they buffed him a bit. The problem with Soul Stealer in Heroes of Newerth I really like he in Nevermore in Dota, which is the same. It's pretty much the same hero. Um, is a very bizarre hero because they usually dominate public play, like regular casual play, but they aren't very seen very often in competitive play because so much relies on his farm. If he dies, he loses his farm, a lot of his effectiveness when he dies. So he's kind of a very big risk reward hero. So that's not very conducive to the competitive nature of the game. And I think he was hit even worse in Heroes of Newerth simply because the game is overall faster than Dota. So um, other people could just do what he could do, but better. So seeing buffs on him are, I guess, it's good, but I don't see him being competitively viable anytime soon. Um, and to all those people that go, oh, well, I own with Soul Stealer. Yeah, you probably do. It's I'm not gonna say it's easy to own with Soul Stealer, but he's very much a snowball hero. Once you get going with him, you get really good. But if you die, you lose all of that. So it's not necessarily his overall effectiveness, but what's being put on the line. Whereas other heroes, even if they die, can still keep that effectiveness. Thunderbringer, they buff. He buffs everywhere. I don't really know if that's a good thing. Maybe he's just been kind of overshadowed by other heroes added to the game. But when I played, he really wasn't, he wasn't something to scoff at by any means. One of the best nukers out there, so now he's just going to deal even more damage. I guess that's a good thing. Um, and Vindicator, I heard months ago that they were going to redesign him completely, and I guess this is their attempt at doing so. Vindicator, Sage's Lore removed. Um, Sage's Lore, I believe, was his passive that let him deal damage, true damage based off his intelligence, which they gave to Shadowblade. I'm pointing at the screen as if you guys could see, which they gave to Shadowblade right here. So it became, I'm not going to say it became irrelevant, but definitely they were the same ability on two different heroes. So the fact that they were changing it definitely makes sense. Brain Drain, which, I'm sorry, S2, that's an awful name. The Vindicator unleashes forgotten lore from within the book, damaging enemies and absorbing some intelligence. Target a position to deal magic damage. For each enemy hero hit, the Vindicator steals intelligence. Okay. That's interesting, I guess. Actually, that's a lot like Dirge from Dota's ability, where he would deal AoE magic damage and steal strength. So I'm not hinting at anything. I'm not pointing any names, but that's very similar to a hero in Dota. Not to say it's a bad thing by any means, but I really do wonder what the point of giving him. Oh no, I'm so stupid. I am so dumb. That's a good thing. That's a great thing because Sage's Lore isn't the ability that gives him that it changes his attack to give him bonus damage based on intelligence. That's Master's Incantation, and Sage's Lore, I believe, is the AoE debuff. So that's a good thing. I was wondering why they would remove the thing that gives him bonus damage based on intelligence, and then giving him the ability to steal intelligence. That just wouldn't make any sense to me. But I'm completely wrong. They are not replacing his attack damage ability. They're replacing his nuke and giving him another nuke. So that's great. Good job. Sorry for the confusion. They reworked Glyph of Silence. What Glyph of Silence used to do was it was an aura that whenever anybody cast within a certain amount of range of him, they would be silenced, and whenever anybody died within a certain range of him, he would gain intelligence, I believe. Whew, this is like 8 years of Dota trying to channel this into my words. I don't know how the hell to work with that. Inscribed into the binding of the book, the Glyph of Silence lashes out at nearby enemies that attack Vindicator while granting greatly increased attack speed. Passively grants attack speed. Enemies that attack you are silenced. Okay. That's interesting. That's actually a really good idea. I like that. Because this actually brings me back to Vindicator and the Silencer in general, which is the Dota 2 counterpart. Because what the Silencer would do is he would literally just silence everyone and give people incentive to cast spells so that he could silence people. But what this does is it gives a penalty for them being silenced, kind of. Because when you're silenced, what else are you going to do but attack and run? So if you attack him, you get silenced, meaning all you can do is attack even more. So yeah, that it synergizes with all of his other abilities, because most of his other abilities deal with silencing. Actually, now only one of them does. But yeah, it means that if you are casting spells against him, you will be silenced, so you won't be able to. If you're attacking people, I'm so lost. If you're attacking him, you won't be able to cast spells, so that you'll have to keep attacking more or run away, because those are your only two options. And if you keep attacking more, you're going to keep being silenced, and that's kind of what he wants you to do anyway. And he can silence you so that you can only attack, so that you have to keep silent. It's actually pretty interesting. I like this ability. It works a whole lot better than simply a silence aura, because that's what it was. It was an effective ability in and of itself. In like team synergy, you would pick it up against people like Pebbles and Tiny, who are the same hero, because they would combo their abilities, and silencing them when they cast would stop their combos altogether. But this kind of is much more of a general ability. It works against everyone, since everyone can attack. But I do think it's an interesting thing, because what would you do? What would you do if you attacked him? You'd become silenced. But that means all you can then do is attack. So you have very little options when it comes to fighting him now, which I find very interesting. But unfortunately, that's the very last part of the Heroes of Newerth patch notes. So we will go over to Dota 2. And there's no Dota 2 news. So we'll go over to Dota 1. That was actually the surprise. There is a new Dota 1 patch, version 6.74. And I will talk about this later when I'm done with this, but it does bring up some interesting thoughts about the whole structure of the Dota 1, Dota 2 beta, and the Dota 2 test beta, and how they all work together, and why Dota 1 will prevail even though Dota 2's out. Dota 1 will still be a relevant game regardless of whether Dota 2 is out or not. Dota 2 will not be a Dota killer by any means. And that being said, let's go into this. Alchemist is the first hero changed. They increased his armor and they buffed his damage on one of his abilities. Now this is actually kind of interesting, because this is what people like IceFrog and the development team on Dota 1 do. Is they don't really change abilities. Well, they change abilities, but they don't change numbers all that much. If a guy needs a buff, they'll give him, say, 1 more armor or 20 more damage on a spell, rather than buffing things out of proportion and then having to nerf them out of proportion as well. So they move things little by little until they work, which is how it should be. Because in a lot of instances, a little number change is what really is needed. So that's a good thing, because after playing Dota 2, I do have to say Alchemist is kind of not a letdown, but he definitely needs some work. So I think this might be able to help him out, having that extra armor, that extra sustainability, and that extra damage. And this is actually a big thing. They're changing Batrider's Flame Break. What Flame Break used to do is it used to be a projectile, like an aim shot from League of Legends, or a skill shot, whatever, however you want to say it, where he would shoot a little piece of fire, and it would go in the direction, and if it hit something, it would explode, but if it didn't, it would go to its destination and explode, and deal damage and knock back. So what it does now is, instead of hitting things, it ignores collision and goes straight to where it was supposed to and explodes there. But they increase the projectile speed. So what this means now is that it's simply a delayed AoE spell. Delayed based on the distance you are from the target. So I think that's interesting, because that removes the chance that a player that you don't want to get hit will move in the way. So it does exactly what you want, rather than adding some chance into it. And I kind of like that. I like that about a competitive game. I like removing RNG as much as possible. And then there's a buff to Bone Fletcher. They increased the damage bonus that he gets from his ultimate and the HP bonus that he gets from his ultimate. And although this is, I guess, good, sorta, it doesn't really matter, because Bone Fletcher is such an irrelevant hero when it comes to competitive play. He's kind of just like a glorified pub stomper. So, I mean, I guess he needed it, sorta, I don't even know, but if you're a competitive player, you won't see that hero at all. And even if you are a casual player and you do see that hero, you don't want to see him buffed. Because the reason he's a pub stomper is because he stomps pubs. Like, that's what he does. Buffing him doesn't really seem to make any sense. Um, I don't know. I guess I haven't played Dota 1 enough to remember if he needs a buff or not. Generally, I just hate the hero. Bristleback got a buff to his Quill Spray damage cap, which means that what Quill Spray does is he does AoE damage to everyone around him, and it stacks. He does more damage the more times he casts it on the same target. So this means that the maximum amount of damage that you can deal is increased, which I guess is a good thing, but there are rarely any instances in which you'll actually get to that before the target dies. So I guess it's good against tanky targets. Like that. Excuse me. Centaur War Chief, Greater Fortitude. Once again, I don't really know if these things are really necessary. They increased his return base damage, which I like. Actually, they changed it completely. It used to just be 16, and now it is scales up to 22 from 16 as you level it. I don't remember what it used to scale otherwise, since it was a passive ability. Yeah, I don't remember. That just shows my lack of exposure to Dota as of late. Clockwork. Oh my god, if you know anything about the fighting game community. Clockwork! Washed up veterans. Power cogs, HP, mana drain increased. Okay, I mean, once again, kind of irrelevant. It seems kind of trivial to buff that because it's almost a trivial part of the spell. What's really important about the spell is that it keeps people in and keeps other people out. That's what it's mainly there for. I mean, having the mana drain, and I guess it drains HP. I don't remember that being a part of the skill. That's kind of like a side thing, so buffing it doesn't really do much for me. And they're buffing the range on Crystal Maiden's ult. Once again, kind of trivial. I'm actually kind of let down by this patch, as we're not all the way through it, but still. What I really want them to do is bring back Crystal Maiden's old ultimate, which used to dominate so much. Maybe just because I was a scrub at the time, but I would get Blink Dagger and I would blink into teams and just destroy them all with her old ultimate. But then they buffed, they changed it completely. They didn't buff or nerf it, so it's not necessarily less effective, but it's less RNG. Thusly, you have less of a chance. Like how it used to be is it would do big explosions randomly around you. So there was a chance to hit people for crazy amounts of damage, but now that it deals it does do random around you, but it's kind of spread out more, less RNG involved. So although it does more DPS necessarily, more like consistent damage, there is less of that chance to just destroy people unconditionally. Which I know that contradicts what I said a few minutes ago about me not liking RNG. Basically, I like destroying people with one ultimate. I'm sorry, that's kind of cool. So having less RNG is a good thing overall, but I don't play Crystal Maiden now because of it. They changed Darkseer's Wall of Replica. Now, they take the illusions that it summons, take more damage. Once again, kind of trivial. 250% of the damage taken to 300% damage. It really, whatever. They're gonna die in a few hits, regardless of that 50%. And what Aghanim Scepter used to do was it made it so that when your allies crossed through it, they would create illusions, but now that's been removed. And simply what Aghanim Scepter does is increase the damage they deal past 100%. So your illusions are actually going to be doing more than what they were originally. So like if an anti-mage gets hit by it, your illusion of that anti-mage is going to be dealing a ton more damage than he will, 40% more damage than he will, to be precise. Which is actually kind of crazy. I don't know how that's going to play out. Doombringer, they changed level death. Once again, don't really care. 25 damage, try to think of all the times that you killed somebody with level death, or you didn't kill someone with level death and they only had 25 health left, or less, since I believe it's magic damage. So I don't really know how that's going to affect it. But once again, little things do change the game, just not in a big way. So, although it may not be exciting, it's better for the game overall. And they actually changed one of the new heroes, Dragonus, whatever. They buffed him. Yes, they buffed him everywhere. So I guess he needed a buff. I've never played him. He seemed like a cool hero when we announced him. I believe it was in the first episode of the AOS Station, which was 10 episodes ago. I never played him, but if he needs a buff, I guess that's cool. I can't really say much about him because I've never played him before. The Drow Ranger silence AoE increased. I don't know. I think 300 is actually the standard for the AoE silence now because I believe 300 is the AoE for what the hell is her name? Defiler from Heroes of Newerth. I forget her name. I forget her name from Dota. She was the Banshee. But I believe they have the same ability, by the way. I believe that's actually what her AoE is, too. So I think they just leveled them out so that they're equal. Which I guess for balance purposes is a good idea. Ember Spirit, which is another one of those new heroes that I never got to play. I guess he needed a nerf. They've already nerfed him before, I do remember that, but now they're nerfing his stats as well. They're nerfing his armor by 1, his base strength by a couple, and just nerfs all around. And as an agility carry, I really don't have a problem with that because I hate agility carries. Enigma Black Hole now prevents heroes being forced out with a Force Staff. That's an interesting change because that was kind of the meta when it comes to fighting against Enigma, was just get Force Staff because you could Force Staff people out of his ultimate and almost negate it. You would need a Force Staff for each person hit by it, and if you were all hit by it, you were screwed. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea. I think it's a good idea because it kind of goes against the whole black hole thing and balance reasons. If you land a really cool ult with Enigma and one person doesn't get hit by it and he has a Force Staff and then Force Staff someone out who has Force Staff, he could save the entire team, kind of, you know. That being said, they would have to all have Force Staff and they would all have to be extremely well organized, but still, I think that's a good thing. Furion, nerf, nerf and a buff, I guess. They buffed teleportation and then they nerfed Wrath of Nature. I don't really know why. Wrath of Nature is, once again, it's one of those trivial abilities. Nobody really uses it. I'm not. It's not a bad ability by any means, but it's not like a game-breaking ability. Most Furions just use it to farm because it does damage all across the map, pretty much. So it's almost like an RNG farm ability. But you can also use it to snipe people since it does have global range. If someone has really low health, less than 250 now, and you hit them with it, they'll probably die, and it's global. So you can use it to snipe people, but you can also use it to just RNG farm because you don't know where it's going to hit after the first target, but it deals a substantial amount of damage, and it hits a lot of people around the map. So it's not really that big of a change, but once again, little things matter. I think this is kind of the motto for the Dota dev team. Goblin Shredder, another one of those new heroes. Timber Chain increased. Oh, damage increased. Okay. They increased the damage for his pull. Gyrocopter, or Gyrocopter, whichever. Homing Missile maximum damage increased. And they buffed him overall. I don't know if that's necessary because he is one of those agility carriers. I believe he's agility. He might be intelligence. But either way, he's a carry regardless. So I don't really know why they buffed him. But once again, I'm not really into the whole Dota scene anymore. I'm not really in the Dota 1 scene, so I wouldn't really know. Which is why we need more guests on the show. If you are in the Dota 1 scene and you want to be a guest on the show, just hit me up, private message on YouTube, send me an email, any of those things, and I'll consider it. They changed Invoker. Oh, those are all numbers. I don't like numbers. I guess the interesting thing you can take out of this is Sunstrike now deals pure damage, which means it can't be negated. Which is crazy because Sunstrike is such a good ability since it's global, but it does kind of deal pitiful damage. Now that it's pure, though, the pitiful damage that it deals will be non-negatable, so it'll deal more damage effectively. And it now reveals the area it'll hit before the damage impact, so you'll kind of know if you're going to get a kill instead of getting kills in fog. So that's interesting. All the other stuff, increased, decreased, it's not necessarily a nerf, it's not necessarily a buff, it's just a change to Invoker overall. Juggernaut, Omni Slash now gives him vision. Don't really care, sorry. Uh, Keeper of the Light, Mana Leak, stun duration increase. Once again, Keeper of the Light's kind of a fringe hero. You're not going to see him that often unless you have some crazy push strategy. So, doesn't really seem to affect much. Kunkka, Torrent, AoE increased by 15. 15 is a pitiful number when it comes to Dota ranges or Warcraft 3 ranges because like the distance between one end of a unit to another, or at least a hero, is about 100. Most melee range is 100, so if you're attacking someone in melee, it's usually around 100. So consider 15% of that. Tiny. So, I don't know, once again, don't know how much that's going to do. I think they're kind of just moving it around to see if it works better, and then they will do more if that's effective. Like, say, notch it up to 250 if it's effective, but it seems such a small number. I don't even know why they're doing it. Ghost Ship stun duration increased once again. All these changes are just so minuscule. It's almost irrelevant. There's a hair on my screen. Psyblades bonus range increased. That's actually pretty cool. Because Psyblades is what it does is it passively lets her attacks deal damage to targets behind the target. So you can effectively increase your range by 240 if you hit a target and you're aiming for a target behind it. So that's interesting because, 20 range, although it is minuscule in the overall scheme of things, it is actually a fair amount when you add it to someone's attack range. So that's interesting. Legion Commander, another one of those new heroes. They decrease something by a minuscule amount. No one cares. Lena Inverse, Fiery Soul. No one cares about Fiery Soul either. Christ. If they changed like her ultimate, that would be interesting. But they changed her passive. Kind of boring. Lion changed Voodoo. Once again, boring. No one cares. But if you're curious, it seems like it's a nerf because they're increasing the durations, and they're increasing the duration, so it's a buff. But they're increasing the cooldown and the mana cost too, so that's a nerf. So 2 nerfs to 1 buff, overall nerf. I know that's an incredible generalization, but you know what I mean. Luna, they changed Moonglaive damage, decrease per bounce. Sorry, don't care. Magnetar, Skewer will now cast in the direction you targeted if you cast it beyond the max range. That's interesting, because that's kind of a fundamental when it comes to movement abilities. Things like Blink and anything based off of Blink will blink you towards the target even though you're out of range. So say the range is like 500 and you click 800 away. Instead of running so that it's 500 distance, it'll simply teleport you however long the distance is towards where you point instead of at where you point. So that's an interesting addition to Magnetar's Skewer ability. They buffed Split Shot to shoot 1 more arrow. Once again, doesn't really matter. I guess it means you can hit the entire enemy team now. But that's in the very fringe scenario in which they have no summons or any creeps or any of that. Morphling. Oh, they changed it so that Morph now gives you stat bonuses, which is interesting. Does that mean that it was a meta to get a tribute bonus on Morphling? Because that would really be the only way I could see them changing it. I guess it's an overall buff because moving your stats around only really matters if you have a lot of stats. So I guess now it's a good ability to get early on. And Waveform now properly dodges projectiles. Naga Siren, they changed Riptide cast mechanism. It's now cast in a 450 AoE around Naga and all of her illusions. Enemies can be fully affected by the illusion's AoE. Okay, what it used to be is it used to be kind of like a wave ability, almost a projectile, so now it seems to be more like a shout or an AoE around you and around your illusions, apparently. I missed that completely. Just shows that I haven't been in the scene very long. Or, I have been in the scene long, but I haven't been in it recently. I've been focusing on other games, mostly. Nerubian Assassin, Earnest Swarm replaced with a new spell. That's good, because Earnest Swarm is kind of boring. They made Weaver really cool, and then they took his ability Earnest Swarm and gave it to Nerubian Assassin. Or am I mistaken? I don't remember. Yeah, Nerubian Assassin used to have Spiked Carapace, and now he has Earnest Swarm, and now he has something else. And Earnest Swarm will actually be reused for a future hero, which is interesting because that kind of lends it to theory crafting about what the new hero will be. Probably something about a bug. I got this weird feeling. Spiked Carapace, which is his old ability, temporarily enhances the assassin's armor, causing him to prevent and reflect the next player-based damage instance and stuns the target. That is awesome. You win. That's great. That's fantastic. I like reactionary abilities a lot, and I think this hero needs it, because the hero's kind of boring. The whole Nerubian Assassin thing is simply Vendetta, run up to target, hit target, impale, mana burn, hit again, you win. They're dead. So having this is really cool. That means you can Vendetta, attack the target, impale, mana burn, and if they don't die and they try to attack you back, spike Carapace, and then they stun, and you can kill them then. It's all new sort of cool synergies within his abilities. I like that a lot. They should do more of that. They should add more reactionary abilities to Dota. Necrolite, Heartstopper damage increased. No one... Boring. Once again, boring. Ogre Magi added a Aghanim Scepter thing. Gives his other head the ability to cast a more primitive version of Fire Blast. It has a constant, not modified by ultimate level, 275 damage, 1.5 second stun, 20 cooldown, 400 mana cost. It can trigger multicast. This is an independent 5th skill added to his ability card. Holy crap. They just gave Ogre Magi a 5th skill. That's so crazy. Okay, if you don't know anything about Ogre Magi or Blacksmith, which is his Heroes of Newerth counterpart, what he does basically is hits people and stuns them. Also, my camera froze? What? There we go. Much better. Okay, sorry about that. That's what happens when you do the show live. So what he does is he stuns people. He Fire Blast stuns someone, deals crazy damage. His ultimate gives him a % chance to cast spells more than once. So literally, you can one-shot people. You Fire Blast them, and it can just keep going off and keep going off and keeping them stunned and keep dealing damage, and sometimes one-shot people, if you're lucky. Now, what this means is he has double the chances. I mean, it's not really as effective, but double the chances. Oh, that's amazing. And I like playing Ogre Magi because he's a fun kind of troll hero. And no, my hair will not stay still. It does whatever the hell it wants. But that's fine. I let it. So yeah, that's really cool. I don't know how that's going to affect him, but that's really cool. I like that a lot. I hope we're getting to the end of the list. Christ, this is so long. But we haven't seen a Dota 1 patch in so long, so I might as well go through every piece. Phantom Assassin, they changed her ranged. Increased the cast range, which is crazy. Phantom Strike isn't the ability I'm talking about. I'm thinking about Stifling Dagger. Stifling Dagger has a crazy attack range, so that will kind of even it out. That's actually a good thing, because that's what they've been doing lately, is taking trivial ranges and just kind of standardizing them. Like Defiler's Crobulus or whatever. The Banshee. The Banshee. Her AoE used to be like, it used to scale as you level it, and that was kind of trivial, kind of pointless, so they just made it a static one number amount, and they're doing that with Phantom Strike's range as well, which I think is a good thing. Because, you know, take the fighting game community, for example. If you had, like, Street Fighter, and, you know, the more you played in a match or whatever, the higher your hyper gauge got, the faster your Hadoukens were. It would just be weird. It would just fuck up strategy. Having consistent numbers is a good thing, even in a game where you level up like Dota. Phantom Strike cooldown rescaled, so they lowered it. Yeah, kinda. They lowered it in the beginning. It's still the same at max level. Priestess of the Moon, Moonlight Shadow, which is their ultimate, is decreased. The cooldown, that is decreased, so you can cast it more. Cool. Puck, Ethereal Jaunt now dodges projectiles. What the? What the hell is Ethereal John? Am I really... Did I miss a Puck change? Did they change Puck? I don't remember them changing Puck, but whatever. Phase Shift cannot be autocast anymore, which is interesting. It takes more skill to use them now, I guess. And it no longer costs mana. And they buffed its duration. I'm sorry, but if anything's broken, it's Phase Shift. Because if you take an ability like Blink Dagger, where it goes on cooldown if you take damage within a certain amount of time, that means that Puck gets a free Blink Dagger every time he uses Phase Shift. You use Phase Shift, and in the time that you're in Phase Shift, your Blink Dagger goes off cooldown and you can use it instantly. So, there's a reason it's nerfed in Heroes of Newerth, because it's just ridiculous. But, Aghanim's upgraded Dream Coil no longer increases the mana cost of the base spell. I guess that's a good thing. A lot of abilities would do that with Aghanim's, is they would increase a bunch of stuff, but they would also increase the mana cost. So it would be overall a buff, but in some cases it'd be a nerf to your mana pool. They changed Pugna. They changed so much crap. What the fuck? Why? Decrepify cast range increased. So they're just standardizing ranges right here. That's good. And Life Drain increased as well. That's good too. Queen of Pain, Shadow Strike initial damage increased. Good, I guess. Actually, that's actually an interesting... that's actually a notable buff, because I don't really think Shadow Strike is very good when it comes to an ability, because all of our other spells are so good compared. Most people would just get it for the movement slow. But, so increasing the damage makes it much more viable late game, I suppose. Even though 125 damage initially isn't very good for a nuke. We've been going for 40 minutes, so I'm kind of out of it. Let's see. Razor, unstable current damage increased. Sorry, I don't care. Razor, if Heroes of Newerth is any reflection on Dota, Razor should be nerfed, because Corrupted Disciple is a beast. So, Shadow Fiend, Necromancy now gives 6 souls for a hero kill instead of 1. That's great. That's cool. That lets you get back your farm if you die, which is a good idea. And it definitely rewards hero kills, which are good. And they buffed it overall, so now you deal more damage. That's crazy. That's good. That's a whole hella good. Now you're going to be doing 68 damage, I believe, at max. Yeah, something like that. Yep. 68 damage. I'm so good at math. Sniper, now headshot increased. No one cares. Ball lightning now properly dodges projectiles. I thought it did anyway, but I guess whatever. Attack range on techies increased. I guess they're just standardizing attack ranges, sorta, maybe, which is a good thing. But nobody really uses techies for their attack anyway, so I don't know why that's useful. Tinker, March of the Machines, duration increased by 1 second. It's kind of a forgettable skill, so kind of a forgettable buff as well. Troll Warlord, Battle Trance, attack speed, bonus increased. That's good. I like Troll Warlord now that he's changed, so buffing him is cool. I like his ultimate a lot, and having it buffed is... I don't know. I really shouldn't be the one talking about this, because I haven't played Dota 1 in so long. And Troll Warlord hasn't been added to Dota 2, so I can't really talk about his balance right now. But if they think it's a good buff, if they think it needs a buff, then it needs a buff, I guess, It's cool, regardless. Viper, poison attack damage increased. Fixed poison attack damage not being lethal. I'm just going to do that for everything. Visage, familiar armor increased. Gravekeeper's cloak recovery time decreased. Okay. This is actually interesting. Let's get to this for a second. Warlock. Infernal's permanent immolation damage increased, which is good because I play Warlock a lot. And Shadowward Pain increased by 1 second. Almost forgettable, but let me bring you down to here. Mjolnir. Its single target buff, Static Shock, can now be cast on non-hero units as well, such as Infernals. Warlock? No? Well, it's definitely not necessarily going to be a Warlock meta change, because no one's going to get Mjolnir on Warlock, but that does mean that if your carry has Mjolnir, they can toss it on your Infernal, which is cool. I like that a lot as a Warlock player. I think that's pretty badass. And they made a bunch of items disassemblable, which is great. And they added Wisp, Disruptor, and Rubik to Captain's Mode, which, as I said in the other episodes, kind of means that they're done. If they're in Captain's Mode, they're ready for tournament play, which means they're pretty much bug fixed, balanced, and ready for the game. So that's good. Good overall, because Wisp and Rubik have been out for a long time, so seeing them getting into Captain's Mode is a good thing overall. Now, although that was a fucking long-ass patch note, I do have something to talk about, because as you can see here, they're still adding to Dota 1. They're still working on Dota 1, even though Dota 2 is out. And what I said previously on a later episode was that Dota 1 would act like almost the beta for Dota 2. Even though Dota 2 is in beta. They would add things to Dota 1 and then add them later on in Dota 2. But that's kind of been shut out of the water, because Dota 2 beta now has its own betaception, because they now have the Dota 2 beta and the Dota 2 test beta, which is a week after something comes out in the Dota 2 test beta, they'll add it to the Dota 2 beta so that beta testers have a more stable game. I think they're forgetting the purpose of the Dota 2 beta, but regardless, it's being used in tournaments, so you might as well have a stable version. But this does not mean that Dota 1 will stop being played, especially if Dota 2 comes out and it is a pay-to-play game or some kind of freemium model. If it goes any way close to the League of Legends model, I don't think any Dota player will ever touch it. But that's because the League of Legends model is retarded when it comes to actual competitive play, which is why I bought a Legacy account in Heroes of Newerth. Hell yeah. But what was I getting at? Oh yeah, Dota 1 will always be played. It's kind of the same reason why Counter-Strike 1.6 is played over Counter-Strike Source. It's just the old game, the old familiarity. It'd be like as if they took soccer and somehow changed soccer fundamentally, and people would still play the original soccer because that's what they've always been playing. So I don't think Dota 1 will be going anywhere anytime soon, especially since it's so stable and balanced. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It has had years. It has had years to balance itself out, and because of that, it's probably the most balanced AOS out there. Mainstream AOS, mind you. Because I would venture to say that the AOS that I really like, that aren't played anymore, were more balanced, but that's just nitpicking at this point. What else? Is there anything else I can talk about? I don't think so. No, guys, it has been a long episode, 52 minutes. I hope you guys enjoyed it, especially my one live viewer. I do appreciate if you come watch me live. If you have any viewer questions, you can send them into, you can email them, to aosstation@gmail.com, or you can send them as a private message on YouTube, or you can come watch the live show, which is every Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern, which is 7 p.m. Pacific time, at Twitch TV, twitch.tv/theAOSstation. If you guys want to see anything more of me, you can check me out at AoStation.com, which is our main website now, thanks to our graphic designer John, who bought the domain name. And if you guys want to see more of what I do personally and keep up with what's going on when the live show is going on, anything going on in my life, you can follow me on Twitter at @PandaManana, which is Panda plus Manana, if you're familiar with Spanish, Manana, excuse me. So, Panda Manana on Twitter. You can also like us on Facebook at Panda Manana. And that's pretty much it, guys. I hope to see you next week, next Monday. But I do release content on our website, aosstation.com, throughout the week between episodes of the AOS Station. Actually, I ordered a new microphone, the Yeti Blue, or the Blue Yeti, excuse me, and that's coming in tomorrow. So expect more high-quality videos from me, high quality, in the future. And on that note, I'm going to get back to studying for my exams because spring break is next week, and I have to study for all these exams that I have before spring break. But you should look forward to more stuff from me because spring break means I will have a week to do stuff, to make videos for you guys, and I have a lot of stuff lined up to do. I actually got into the Dota, excuse me, I've been in the Dota 2 beta. I just got into the Terra beta, so last weekend I did a lot of filming. I filmed about like 60 gigs of footage, and I'm going to be doing a review of the Terra beta on, I believe, on the AoStation. I think we can expand this over to more game genres than just the AOS slash MOBA slash ARTS. God damn, we need a genre name. Uh, so once I get my mic, once I get all that set up, once spring break comes around, I will be doing more videos more frequently. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for sticking around. I will see you guys next week. Bye.